Hi, my name is Madison Hartz. I will be doing my presentation on the current conflict in Ukraine, specifically how it is affecting Ukraine's economy and how it all relates to the international economy. There has been conflict in Ukraine since 2013. Ukraine was originally part of the Russian Empire, but then it split up and they became their own nation. Russia still has a lot of influence in Ukraine, and Ukraine's economy has been supported by Russia. But Russia wants Ukraine's territory and they annexed Crimea. That led to fighting between Russia and Ukraine over territory. More than 10,000 people have died in this conflict, not to mention the 1.5 million who have been displaced. Here's a map of Ukraine so you can get a better understanding of where everything's located. Towards the bottom is the peninsula known as Crimea, and based on the darker colors, you can see how many people speak Russian natively. Those would be the separatists who still consider themselves Russian citizens, and then towards the lighter portion of Ukraine is the people who identify as Ukrainian citizens. The International Political Economy, or IPE, is a way to look at international problems both through political and economic perspectives. Ukraine's economy is not only affected by their imports, but also by their exports. Other nations can have a large effect on Ukraine's economy, like in the war with Russia. The economy isn't doing very well because a lot of money and resources are being focused to win the war. Nations not only focus on themselves, but they help out other nations, which influences each other's economy. Ukraine's current economy is doing better than it was a few years ago. Recently, President Trump made the decision to withhold military aid from Ukraine. Then, about a week later, he made a phone call to Ukraine's president. Trump wanted an investigation on Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden. It has been widely speculated that it was quid pro quo, meaning there was an exchange. The exchange would be that Trump would give Ukraine back the funding to defend themselves from Russia, and he would get information on a political opponent. Trump made that decision because it was in his best interest. He wanted Ukraine to do what he asked, so he withheld aid. This seems immoral that a president is using his power for personal gain, and the situation has been very prevalent in the US. Ukraine is currently receiving $391 million in military and security aid from the US. This international transaction affected Ukraine because they lack the resources to fight the conflict on their own. When other countries aid them, they are able to fight the war and support their nation. During the first few years of the conflict, Ukraine's government had to focus on protecting the territory that they already own, as Russia was trying to invade. Ukraine experienced recession in 2013 and no growth in gross domestic product, or GDP. GDP is good to look at when examining the economy because it shows total monetary value of that country's goods and services over a year, so it's a way to look at how the economy is doing, especially over time. The war with Russia led to Ukraine's economy suffering for the first few years, but it has gotten better over time as shown in the graph of Ukraine's GDP. Ukraine is also being aided by the European Union, Germany, France, Canada, and the United Kingdom. The other graph shows a comparison of the aid given by the United States, European Union, and Canada. This aid is very important to the Ukraine, and by other nations supporting them, allies are being formed, It's clear to see that Russia is abusing their power by attempting to take over Ukraine, and they've already invaded Crimea. When looking at economic globalization, there's two main theories of trade. The first is mercantilism, and that basically states that nations need to look out for their own interests, even if it's at the expense of others. The government should protect the economy, and to limit competition, foreign goods should be taxed. The nation should be able to support itself so that they don't depend on other nations. The other theory is liberalism, and that theory supports free trade and wants nations to work together. This is the ideal thing that would happen, but in reality, it's going to be mercantilism. The pie chart shows who Ukraine trades with, and as you can see, there's a lot of different countries that they're trading with, just like the United States is. Trade is a big part of globalization, and trade is going to affect every nation's economy in different ways. Ukraine is known for exporting chemicals and mechanical equipment. Here's a list of all the references I used to create my presentation. Thank you for listening.